everybody, welcome to our section 4.1 video lecture on the introduction to signed fractions. So we've now made it to chapter 4, which is the fraction chapter. Very exciting. So we're going to start with the basics at the very beginning and a little bit of vocabulary. So first off, the numerator is the top part of a fraction. And the denominator is the bottom part of a fraction. Okay. Then there's improper fractions versus proper fractions. An improper fraction is a fraction where the numerator is greater than or equal to the denominator. So it's a fraction whose numerator, I'm just going to use a big N for numerator, is greater than or equal to the denominator. And I'm just going to use a big D for denominator. A proper fraction then would be a fraction whose numerator is less than the denominator. So in example 1, we're just going to look at all of those vocabulary words and just do a little bit of practice. For each one, we're going to identify the numerator and the denominator of each fraction, and then we're going to label it as either an improper or a proper fraction. It'll be one or the other, okay? In example A, I've got 7/9. So in 7/9, the numerator is that top number, it's the 7. So the numerator is 7. The denominator is the bottom part of the fraction. The denominator would be 9. In this case, 7 is less than 9, so it would be a proper fraction. In the next one, I have 11/3. So in this one, the numerator would be 11. The denominator would be 3. And 11 is greater than 3, so this one is an improper fraction. Okay. And the last one is a little interesting. It's 5/5. So in this one, the numerator is 5, the denominator is also 5, and 5 is equal to 5, which means that it would be an improper fraction. So if they're equal, they're also improper. So hopefully that helps you guys a little bit with the vocabulary. The next thing is kind of getting a visual of fractions. So we're going to draw a sketch to illustrate the fractional part for this one. So each rectangle is a whole, and what we're going to do is try to sketch out 2/5 of that whole thing. So 2/5 means that this whole part is divided into 5 pieces. That's what the denominator means. Is it's going to get divided into 5 pieces. So I'm going to try my best to make these pretty even. Okay? And just make some little separating lines here. So now I've divided it into 5 pieces, and each one of these pieces is 1/5 of the whole rectangle. The 2 on top means that I'm going to shade 2 of those fifths. So here, this would be 1/5, and a second one would be 2/5. And that's what it looks like. Let's do another one. I've got 7/8. So the first thing I'm going to do is divide my whole rectangle into eighths. I'm going to divide it into 8, hopefully equal looking pieces. So this would be in half. There would be 4ths. And here are my 1/8. Okay? So now I've divided my rectangle into 8 mostly equal pieces. Okay? And 7/8 means that I have 7 of those 1/8. So this would be 1/8 of the whole thing, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, and 7/8. And that's what 7/8 of the whole rectangle looks like. Right, next up, fractions are numbers, so you can actually graph them on a number line, which is pretty nice. So let's graph a few things on the number line. And on this, I've already divided it into the pieces. We're just going to find where they are. So the first one I have is 3/2. So this is 3 halves. So here's 0 on my number line, and here's 1 on my number line. Exactly midway between it would be 1/2. So this is 0 halves. This would be 1/2. This is 2 halves, which would be the whole thing shaded in. And here would be my 3 halves. So 0 halves, 1/2, 2 halves, 3 halves. My next one is 2/3. So here's 0 on my number line, and here's 1 on my number line. Between 0 and 1, I've already divided it into thirds for us. So this is 0, this would be 1/3, and next would be 2/3. You notice if we had shaded that in, it wouldn't have shaded a whole rectangle, so it would not shade all the way to 1. It would be between 0 and 1. Next is 5/4. So here is 0, here is 1, and I've already divided us into fourths on this one. So this is 1/4, 2/4, 3/4, 4/4, which would be a whole, and next is 5/4. So that's where it would be on the number line. And the last one is 4/5, and here is 0 and 1. I've already divided us into fifths. So this is 1/5, 2/5, 3/5, and there's 4/5. It's almost all the way to 1, but not quite there yet. The next thing we're going to do is write fractions as an equivalent fraction. And so what you do to make an equivalent fraction is multiply the numerator and denominator by the same thing, and it'll give you an equivalent fraction, because you're technically multiplying by 1 to get there. So my first example is 4/9 equals something over 18. So what I'm thinking is, how do I get from 9 to 18? What am I multiplying by? I would multiply by 2 to get there. And so if I'm going to multiply my denominator by 2, I will also multiply my numerator by 2, so that I'm multiplying by 1, and I would make an equivalent fraction. So 4 times 2 would be 8. And that would be in the blank here. In my next one, I have 7/11 equals blank over 55. So I'm thinking 11 times what gives me 55? 11 times 5 equals 55. So I will also multiply my numerator by the same thing. 7 times 5 is 35. So 7/11 is equivalent to 35/55. Those things are equal. My next one in part C is 5/2 equals blank over 6. So again, I'm thinking 2 times what gives me 6? 2 times 3 is 6. So I will multiply my numerator by the same thing. 5 times 3 would be 15. Okay. Are you guys about ready to try one? I hope so. So I'm going to let you all try D. So go ahead and pause your video, and I will show you the answer in 3, 2, 1. You should be multiplying by 8, and you should get 16/24. Alright, last thing we're going to do is simplify each fraction by dividing. So that little line in the middle of a fraction is also a division line. So you can think about it a number of ways. These fractions, you can think about them visually, you can think about them as a number on the number line, or you can think about them as a division problem. Those are all different ways of looking at a fraction. So in example A, I have 16/1. That's the same thing as 16 divided by 1. And 16 divided by 1 is 16. In part B, I have -25/-25. So that's -25 divided by -25, which is 1. In part C, I have 7 divided by 0. Well, if you guys remember our 0 rules, would that be 0 or undefined? That would be undefined. This would be like having 7 pizzas and trying to divide it into 0 groups. You can't get rid of all your pizzas. You can't get 0 groups out of that. So that would be undefined. Just to contrast that, in part E, I know I'm skipping over D, I'll get back to it. But in part E, we have 0 divided by 9. That would be like having no pizza and dividing it amongst 9 friends. You wouldn't have any pizza for anybody, but you can mathematically do that. Okay, now we'll come back to D. D, we have what, -8 divided by 4. -8 divided by 4 is -2. Okay, so hopefully you guys get some good practice on this one. Let me know if you guys have any questions along the way, and hope you have a great day.